So in this video, we're going to see how to create a entities and activities table. You see here in this spreadsheet, which as a reminder, you can access via the in-class DFD and flowchart link in web courses. I've partially started the ENA table. You'll also notice that there's a tab for ENA context. That's a completed ENA table that we'll use to create our context data flow diagram. And there's also an ENA level 0 tab that we'll use to create our level 0 data flow diagram. What I want to do in this video, though, is just go through the steps of creating the ENA table. And I've partially gone through that here. Notice that we have 3 columns. One is just labeled activity, that's for numbering each activity. Then entities column and an activities column. So let's go through the first paragraph of the narrative and see how I created these activities, the entities and the verbs. So here is the narrative, and what you basically do is go through the narrative really sentence by sentence. So if you look at the first sentence, it says members call the golf shop. In this sentence, members is the noun and call is the verb, and the verb phrase is calling the golf shop. So on our ENA table, we have included the noun members in the entity column and calls the golf shop in the activity column. The next 5 activities that I'm going to model cover the sentences through here where we're displaying a valid status. So what I want to do is just go through the narrative and go sentence by sentence. Notice that members is the noun in the next sentence, and schedule tea time is the verb phrase. Continuing on with that sentence, we see that there's another activity described in this sentence. That'll often happen when you have things separated by commas, in which members is a noun and provide is the verb. They're providing their membership number. So this is basically what you do to create an ENA table. And what I suggested in the previous video was you go sentence by sentence and you identify the nouns and you identify the activities, and you use circles or underlines or highlight in one color versus another color so that you can identify everything on the narrative and then go from the narrative to your ENA table. So just continuing on the next sentence, employee is the noun and the verb is enters, and the verb phrase is enters the membership number into the system. You want to include into the system when we create the activity because that when the verb phrase is referencing another noun, that other noun is generally going to be a data store or may in fact be an entity. Here is another activity. This one's a bit hard because the narrative isn't written perfectly, and that's certainly a real-world phenomenon you'd have to deal with. It says, which accesses the membership database. So we know this is another activity because we've got this other verbs talking about accessing the member database to validate the account. But which is really referring to the system, right? So this is really saying the system accesses the membership database. That's going to be a separate activity. And then in the last sentence that we're going to include, or that I've included in the partial, it says, if the membership ID is valid, the system, so that's the noun phrase that we're going to model, or include in the ENA table, displays a valid status and populates the membership information on the employee's computer screen. So let's go ahead and see how we go from this narrative to the ENA table. So we have the second activity, members provide a membership number. The employee enters the membership number into the system. The system accesses the membership database, and the system validates the membership account, and the system displays the valid status. So now that we understand how to create an ENA table, let's take a look at the completed ENA table. I'm going to the tab labeled ENA Context, and you'll notice that I've got 25 different activities. We've already gone through the first 6, so I'm just going to quickly read through the rest of them. And you should be able to do this also and refer back to the narrative and see how I completed these other activities, and also to verify to yourself that I haven't forgotten any activities. So I'm going to continue with 7. The employee notifies the member of invalid status if invalid. The member contacts club operations if invalid. The system sends club operations an invalid status message, again, if invalid. The employee asks the member for the date, if valid. The member tells the employee the preferred date. The employee enters the date into the reservation system. The system displays the available times to the employee. The employee informs the member of the available times. The member tells the employee the requested time. The employee enters that time into the reservation system. The system places a block on that time. The system displays the reservation block to the employee. The employee requests the number of holds. The employee requests the number of holds and guests from the member. The member tells the employee the number of holds and guests. The employee enters the number of holds and guests into the system. The system displays the confirmation to the employee. The employee relays the confirmation number to the member, and the employee reminds the member of the rules. Finally, the system updates the charges to the member's account. Now that we have all the activities, we can then use this ENA table and the structure of it to begin to create our context data flow diagram. And that concludes the ENA video.